Ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, now on the Weld Like BAZZA podcast, please welcome the one and only BAZZA.
Yes. Welcome back to the Weld Like BAZZA podcast, the number one welding industry podcast, where real talk meets real people. I'm your host, BAZZA, Barry Steele, engineer, welding solution provider, proud son of the late Malcolm Steele, and of course, passionate voice for the welding industry and community. Season 1 was all about reigniting Dad's legacy, digging deep into the past and giving welders, engineers and business owners, well, anybody in our family, a platform to share real stories. We had legendary conversations, from mental health chat with Andy Banton to industry insights from Callum from EWM and Jeremy Packer from SWP. And now, Season 2, we're kicking it up a gear. Expect hard-hitting interviews with innovators and edge pushers across the welding, fabrication, engineering and tech industries. Think robots, cobots, CNC systems, high welding technology and cutting-edge kit, business hustle, and more laughs than sparks. If you're here to dig into welding gear, future tech, trade tricks, or just top coffee chats with legends, this is the show for you. Whether you're a workshop warrior or behind the desk, Weld Like BAZZA is where us, you, me, our minds are unfiltered. New here, hit subscribe. And to our returning watchers and listeners, thanks for helping us reach and climb the charts so very highly last year. So here we go then. Strap in. Let's spark Season 2 and dig deep on the Weld Like BAZZA podcast.
The Weld Like BAZZA podcast is sponsored by MS Welding, the number one welding solution provider. mswelding.co.uk.
Just sing me a song.
Sing you a song.
Sing me a song.
I'm not very good at doing that.
Do you know what I think I've always wanted to do? And with this being Season 2, I wanted to do that like husky Cilla Black. What's your name and where do you come from?
Yeah, that's pull back the blind date screen.
Let's start that. That's and behind the screen, contestant number 1.
So my name's Aaron Cooper. I'm working now for Corewire. Based in the UK.
We've met. This is our second. Yeah.
Yeah. I'm 39. I feel like I'm 55.
I'm going to say, is that all?
Yeah. And I've got 2 very grown up children who aren't children anymore. So I've got one who's 19 this year. Okay. One who's just turned 17.
Okay. I would have some questions for you, but I'm not taking you out on a date. So.
Are you sure? What's my ideal first date?
Yeah, what's your ideal first date?
I met my wife at 17. It was a different world back then.
What did you do?
Do you know, I went to her house and had a Chinese. That's what we did the first time, yeah.
Impressive.
Yeah, I was working for my old man and she was working for her brother, and we met in workshop on a market stall.
Was your dad in the industry?
No. So her family they've always done fruit and veg. And my dad's sort of self-employed, just buying, selling bits and bobs.
A bit like welding industry.
Yeah. I mean, I got into the welding industry at 18.
Right. Where did you work at 18?
So it was a company called Central Welding Supplies.
Central Welding Supplies.
Yeah. I mean, they're not around anymore. But yeah, that's where I cut my teeth, and then it flitted around a little bit in her family's business, but pretty much barring 3 or 4 years, I've been in welding since I was a boy.
So, and how did it all start? What did you do? What was your initial job in the welding industry?
Just starting in an office. So Central Welding had the first website for selling welding consumables. It was called DIY Welding.
Sheffield based?
Mansfield.
Right.
Yeah. So they had a website called DIY Welding.
Right.
And it was the first one of its kind. I think they sold it on eventually. It's owned by somebody down south and I'm not sure. But yeah, so that was me. I was in there taking orders over the phone and things like that. Just learning about the products and what's used in the industry, because the welding industry is massive. It's not just about wire. It's about equipment. It's about PPE. It's about tools and everything.
So where did you go from there?
I spent some time with Derek Sparks and Mike G.
Right.
At East Midland Welding.
Right, okay.
So they put me out on the road for the first time, which was a massive eye-opener because everybody thinks that being on the road as a sales rep is like, so good. Hotel stays, traveling, everything.
Rockstar status.
But I tell you, you find out when you're doing 12-hour days and you're driving 300-400 miles a day.
And you got no orders.
Yeah, it's a different world. I mean, sales in general is so bipolar. You can either have, you wake up at 7 in the morning, you start doing your work. By 10 a.m., you've took your first order, you're on top of the world, and then everything falls flat. And by the end of the day, you're thinking, can I still do this? What's going to happen? And then you get another order and everything's fine again.
And has it always been like that for you?
Yeah.
Have you always felt like it's been like that?
Yeah, I think that I came into the industry young, one of the only young people to be involved around it. And obviously throughout my career, I started specialising in hard-facing, maintenance and repair.
And what were the reason in that?
I got offered a job at one of the biggest OEMs in the world.
Right.
And I started working for them doing some resales of consumables and then some service work.
Right,
so
okay.
In the workshop, learning about a thermal spray tungsten carbide, plasma coatings, really hard layers of weld with only one layer and things like that.
Right.
And then I started specialising in thermal power, so working with the power stations.
Okay.
I've been fortunate to always work with really clever people. So the training I've had is from people who live and breathe chemical compositions and the right alloys to use in the right situations.
So from your point of view, this is actually learned knowledge.
Yes.
This is real knowledge, learned knowledge, not something that's been, as I think I posted about it last week, you've not just pre-rehearsed a script. It's something that you've actually studied and learned. It's been learned knowledge.
Yeah, I mean, I've got videos of me with some of the guys who I worked with working on a 57-ton roller in a raw mill at a cement plant when it's minus 10 degrees and you've got welds spalling out.
Right.
So I've been there and I've done it. And like I say, I've worked with really good people who knew what they were doing. And you learn, you learn if the weld isn't laying right, or if you're getting spalling, or if you need to preheat, if you don't need to preheat, what the right material is.
So the question at this point, I think that's really important, is how long did you have that hands-on experience for? Because some people might class doing 6 months of that as, I'm full of knowledge. I know all I need to know. How long did you do that for?
11 years over 2 different companies.
Right. So it's not like it was a flash in the pan.
No, and it's something that you either enjoy it or you don't. And for whatever reason, whether I'm a masochist or whatever, I really enjoy it. So it works for me.
I think you can look at the welding industry as an industry that's not so great at times, but then when you speak about it with people who are passionate about what they do, I think it's a pretty amazing place still to be. And it's also a job that AI is probably not going to take from us so quickly. I've got down that rabbit hole. Let's not go down there. It's not a UFO podcast, this one. I'm currently in the rabbit hole of what jobs are going to be lost to AI. If you were going to kind of make sure that you had a good solid future, the welding and kind of engineering future would be one to get yourselves in. It's not going to be replaced by AI in a chatbot anytime soon.
I think there was the big worry when robotic welders came in and cobots and things like that people were nervous that welders were going to lose their jobs. But the reality behind it is you still need someone who knows what they're doing to control these bits of equipment.
What's the place in Sheffield? The Industrial Museum. What? And people go raving there now and stuff. Okay, was it Magma?
There is Magma there, yeah.
Okay, I went there with my dad and they had a really, really old ABB, a welding robot arm, and it had probably been put in the 80s. And at that point in the 80s, people were like, God, the robot's going to take our jobs. That's not happened, has it? No. Definitely not.
No, there's a lot to take into account. I mean, I think a cobot and things like that, they are good for what you need them to do. In
certain applications,
In certain applications, but again, it's application specific. If you've got bulk repeat orders for hundreds of parts a week a robot can help.
Yeah.
But I'm going through it at the minute because Corewire, obviously, we manufacture semi-automated equipment.
Yes. And you do that in your base.
Yeah, so it's everything we do is done down at Ashvale.
Yeah.
The machine side of things is a small part of the business.
Okay.
But we do a lot of roll cladders for the steel industry.
Right.
And it's all semi-automated.
Cladding systems?
Yeah, so mainly for roll refurbishments.
Right.
Within the steel industry. But we also have forging machines.
Okay.
So machines to rebuild worn forged dies.
Right.
Which impressive piece of kit. It's not on a robot.
So you've got engineers down there?
We've got a dedicated team who looks after manufacturing the equipment.
Right.
But we've got this Forge Weld Mini, and it's incredible for what it actually does. So it can do circle welding, and it's not a robot, it's XYZ.
Yeah.
And it's with CNC programming rather than robotic language.
Yeah.
So it's, for companies looking to do a lot of rebuilding on parts, it's pretty perfect for it. So I really like the machine, it's, but it's not going to replace anybody.
Definitely not.
You still need people who know what they're doing, where to weld, where to program it. It's not as simple as we'll put a robot in and press a button.
It's funny you should say that because I quite often get called into a customer after they've bought a cobot from somebody else and I've not had the opportunity to go in first. And you go in and ultimately the guy stood there. They put somebody on who may have been a part picker or worked in the stores. Absolutely no idea about welding, no idea about metallurgy, no idea about process. And then they wonder why John or Darren or whatever his name is isn't really getting the welds with this fantastic $100,000 machine that we just bought. And that takes me back to what you've just said. You need somebody who knows what they're doing.
Yeah, definitely. It was scary for people, 90s, early noughties when these machines were coming in because anybody who thinks they're going to lose the job to machines is terrifying.
It's a scary job. Yeah, it's scary.
I think the welding industry, like I say, I think there's a few industries that are pretty safe. If you can plaster, if you can plumb.
I'm teaching myself how to plaster.
Oh, yeah. Oh, I had a go. It's not for me. I'm not. This is why I like hard-facing, because it doesn't need to look pretty. It just needs to be effective.
One of my customers said the other day, he travels about an hour to see me, and my mum was here and I was doing a job for him and something was said and he went, "Oh, you're definitely on the spectrum." And I was like, and to me that was the best compliment I've had all week. I was like, I know I am. I absolutely know. And then Oliver, my son, is like, "Oh, hang on, my dad's home. He's noticed the smallest microscopic scratch in the worktop of the kitchen. He's going to spend 19 days polishing that out." And I completely am that anal, but that's who makes me who I am. And my attention to detail, I think, is something that really helps me in what I do regarding my job. Regarding the welding, you just said there, it doesn't need to look pretty, but if I put something down and it doesn't look pretty, I'm not happy.
I think there's an obsession in the industry with having a shiny weld when you're done.
It's not always good though, is it, having a shiny weld?
No, definitely not.
Depending on what you need.
Exactly. I don't know where it's come from, but if it looks pretty and shiny afterwards, everybody's really happy with it. But the fact is, it just needs to do a job. Hard facing in general, it's a sacrificial layer.
Right, so let's get down this rabbit hole of hard facing. Why did you become so obsessed with it? Because when I first met you, I just want to tell everybody who's listening to this, I've never met anybody who's as enthusiastic, who can hold a conversation about a very small part of a topic for such a long period of time and leave and still have so much energy left. And you really are enthusiastic. And I kind of sat back on that thinking, actually, I've met somebody a little bit like myself, extremely enthusiastic about the industry, not just meeting targets, not just selling something to the customer, actually about what he does. And that's why you're back on the show, to be fair. That initial meeting, and I was like, that's great. So tell me, where did that obsession come from, that start point?
Well, let me turn it on you for a second, okay? Right. So you sell predominantly EWM equipment.
Yes.
And you sell it because it's quality, because it does what it needs to do, because it works, because it runs, and because your customer at the end of it is getting value from the process.
Exactly that.
But that's why I like hard facing, because the feeling you get when you see an end user,
yeah,
and they are using the wrong material or the wrong product, or it's not quite right, or they need something that does what they need it to do, you get a much better feeling at the end of that process when they're all sorted, when they're using the right material at the right spec with the right equipment for the right application. The value you actually add is massive.
I agree.
That's what makes the difference, because, and this is no offense to anybody in the industry, but we could all go out with a little book and say, here's what we have in our range. What do you want?
Or the other side of it, they phone their regular supplier who can't get it there fast enough, or they need it a little bit quicker than normal, and they try somebody else. And the first line of the conversation is normally, what do you normally use?
Mm-hmm. And you know, because I've spoke about it, it's the worst thing to hear. You know, you go and see somebody and they've been using HF600, which is my bugbear product, to be honest with you.
Okay.
But they've been using it for years and years and years.
And they believe it's the best thing.
Yeah. But 99 times out of 100, it's not going to be.
So tell me, before we go down the rabbit hole of a HF600, what it's actually good for. Because it's sold absolutely by everybody, everywhere.
Yeah.
So what is it good for?
200 tons a year-ish of HF600 comes into the UK.
Right.
Every year. It's built for mild impact with mild abrasion.
And what do we class as mild? Like what are we talking about there, mild?
So if you're processing gravel with a 0.5 meter drop, it's probably going to be the right thing to put at the bottom of a chute.
Right. If we were talking about like really, really acidic material coming out of a chute in a power station, then HF600 is not going to be the right thing for you.
Exactly.
Right, okay.
Everything you look at with hardfacing has to be application specific.
Right, well, that's good to hear, because when you do phone some people to order your hard-facing materials, it's not always what you hear. So let's continue.
If somebody rings you up and says, I need some welding wire.
Yes.
You don't just go, right, I'll send you some SG2 or SG3.
Exactly that.
So you'll ask them, I'm assuming, is there any heat involved? What's the base material? What are you trying to do? You know, what tensile strength does it need? You ask these questions.
That's right.
So you can supply mild steel or stainless or aluminium or whatever is needed to join these materials.
And then you also ask the other side of the question of what is it you actually want to achieve? Yep. What is it you want to do? Why are you using what you're using already is normally something that, and some people are very hard to persuade otherwise, but that is normally the question. And then I normally get hit by a bit of a shield at that point. Well, why are you asking so many questions?
And I'm not sure where that's come from on the end user side. It wasn't always like this. 10 years ago, information was a lot more forthcoming.
Right.
Nowadays, even now when you email people, you know, you'll see they've removed their mobile numbers from email signatures and things like that.
Yeah.
Because I think they get hit with a lot of salespeople who will ring up and say, what are you using at the minute? They're not adding any value to the process. But that's by the by. Somebody rings you up for hard facing and the guy needs some hard facing wire.
Yeah.
999 times out of 1,000, everyone will go, I'll send you some HF600.
Yeah. Or when you turn around to them and say, you know, I've got something I think you want. Well, no, just send us what we've always had because we're happy with that.
Yeah.
Is the other side of the coin, because I think there's two sides to the coin. And then you're in that rock or hard place. They don't want to try anything new. They don't want to believe that something can be done better. You're just Barry at MS Welding, so we're not going to really listen to you anyway. But yeah, I'll just send us what we always have.
We should be asking the same questions with hard facing as we do with joining. It's all dependent on the base material, on the temperature, on the material that's being processed.
Application.
Yeah. How much build-up do you need? You know, are we going to have to recommend a buffering layer as well?
What's your environment? Are you dry? Are you working in the wet? Is it pissing it down with rain?
Did you know that if you have something by the coast, say a power station by the coast, suffers from a higher level of corrosion than one inland?
Exactly, I do.
Because the salt in the air actually affects the material on site.
Being a wannabe surfer, I know that only too well.
But these questions should be standard. We should be asking these questions. And the amount of times I see it not being asked now, you know, I've been out of, I don't want to say out of the welding industry, but I've been dealing purely with wear protection for a few years.
Right.
And that means prefabricated parts, actually doing the welding or repair of parts.
So, right, okay. Yep.
So
give us an example.
Welding a raw mill at a cement plant, or thermal spraying boiler tubes inside a power station.
Okay.
So I've been doing this sort of work for a few years, and I've just come back into what I call pure welding, somewhere like Corewire, where we have different ranges for different applications.
Right.
The knowledge is disappearing from the industry. People aren't asking questions anymore.
Do you now I've got a question for you on this, just to see what you think about it. Do you think it's because somebody's going to phone up, they're going to speak to the welding wire specialist, and the welding wire specialist is just thinking, well, I've only sold loads of SG2 this month, or this is a good chance to sell some HF600, which I've probably got a little bit of better margin in. Let's get a couple of rolls of HF. Oh, wow, 4 rolls of HF600. Let's get it sold. Instantly looks better on his margin sheet, and he can then answer his next phone call or email. Do you think it's that, or do you genuinely think some of that knowledge and also the enthusiasm for the industry at that level has started to be a little bit more diluted?
I think the industry as a whole is struggling at the minute. I think that a lot of people are either aging out. You know, you've seen some really big names in the industry who've passed away in the last couple of years, or retired. Yeah. You know, at Corewire, we've got a couple of guys who's been there for 28 years, 28, 29, 30 years. Yeah. They're at the point where, you know, retirement's starting to look nice.
Yeah. Because it's not an easy industry to spend your life in.
No, especially when people look at you funny because you're asking questions. But I think you have to ask these questions. There's nothing better than getting the right solution for an end user.
I agree, 100%.
You know, I gave you an example when we were talking off mic earlier about a company I'm working with now, 100 years old.
This is a really good story, actually. So, yeah, let's have this one.
They've never been asked why they're using the wire that they're using.
What they're using?
HF600.
Right. And what they're doing?
Pure abrasion.
Right. So that would entail something is really, really trying to smash something down.
Yeah. I mean, you're looking at ash from a power station or, you know, cement dust, raw materials, sand.
Extremely hard. Yeah. Extremely hard elements.
Yeah. Well, even glass, plastic. Yeah, they're really abrasive. You don't realise it, but when you've got small particles of even plastic or rubber, you know, the abrasion is massive. Yeah. But there's no impact involved in their processes. No. And I mean zero. There's nothing, no big part's going to hit it, no impact whatsoever. So every year they're having to re-weld or do more work than what they should because they've got the wrong material. But
they're being sold HF600.
Over and over and over again. And they actually said to me, what's your price for your HF600? And I just flat out refused. I'm like, I don't think it's the right material for you. It doesn't make sense to quote what other people are quoting because I'm 99% sure it's the wrong material. Yeah. So I invited them down to our headquarters. Come down to Ashvale. We'll have a look. We'll go through some different materials. I'll show you the manufacturing process because we do everything in-house. So we buy the big coils, which we actually slit ourselves to make the sheath for the wire. We mix all the raw materials ourselves. We fill the wire. 6 filling lines at Ashvale.
All down there.
Yeah. 6 filling lines that can do 8 ton a day per line.
Right.
And then we coil it together and we even draw it down. So everything is done in-house. Right. So they came down and let's say they were quite impressed, you know. Or
I can understand why.
They saw the whole process from start to finish. They got an understanding over the wires and what they can do. Because there is wires for pure impact. There is wires for abrasion. There is wires for corrosion. There's mixtures of all of them together. And we tried 4 different wires. So we tried what I call the standard sort of HF600 grade material. Okay. We tried an impact resistant wire, which is titanium carbide. And we tried 2 abrasion resistants, one that can be machined and one that can't be machined but can be ground.
Right, okay.
And the easiest test for anybody, and there is one on my LinkedIn where you can see, do the grind test. So once you've deposited the material, try and grind it off and see what happens. With an HF600, sparks everywhere, you know, you'll grind the material away without an issue. With a proper abrasion-resistant wire, no sparks, no anything.
So would you say then the majority of people that are doing like bucket repairs or bucket rebuilds, they're probably using HF600? It's probably, to be fair, after what you just said, probably the wrong material for the job.
For a bucket, 600's not bad because you've got some, depending on what they're lifting. If it's sand, then it's different again. But this is why application specifics are so important.
Brilliant question, brilliant answer. Yeah, good.
And then there's different materials as well that are like HF600, but with a bit of a higher grade. So imagine an HF600 with some aluminium in it.
Yeah, okay.
Okay, we've got one, it's called CS600.
Yeah.
And the reason why that works so well is the way that the aluminium performs once it's welded gives you a bit more impact resistance. The weld looks beautiful and shiny, which everybody loves.
Yeah.
Again, there's pictures on LinkedIn of things, buckets being welded with that type of material.
You'd be amazed at how hard aluminium is. Mm-hmm. It's a very hard material. And
the way that wires are manufactured, particularly with metal cord and flux-cored wires, we add elements to the wire which react with other elements at different stages. Yep. So if you can control the order that they're reacting and which elements they're reacting with, that gives you a proper hard-facing wire.
You're molecular building, aren't you?
Oh, you have to. I mean, we have a metallurgist on site full-time, and he's tested every single wire that we produce.
Yes.
You know, if I say we have maybe 80 wires as our core range, and that's split between our weld-clad range, which is submerged arc. Forge weld range, which is for forging dies, like tool steel type of things.
Yeah, sure.
And our Corewire range, which is our general hard facing.
Right.
80 products. And that will cover 99% of things.
So when somebody comes from a scrapyard and they're going to be chucking all sorts into the crusher on a daily basis, we don't know what they're going to be putting in. It could be anything from a plastic mannequin to an engine to gas bottles and cylinders. Again, that phone call normally comes in, I need some more HF600. There's quite a lot there actually in a crusher. Would we step away from HF600?
Depending on the base material of the crusher. You have to be careful if it's manganese.
Yeah, and quite often the person pulling the trigger or the person that's bought the machine doesn't know. That's one of the situations you find yourself in. It
is. Normally you can tell by looking. You know, if you actually go and look, you can tell a cast manganese part.
You can see when you cast your eye over it, it's got a look of its own, hasn't it?
Yeah, I mean, if it's a work hardening part, and I had this recently, somebody hard-faced a crusher in a quarry with HF600 and it all just fell off.
Fell off instantly. Yeah.
So it does happen. But if you can find out what the base material is, what they're trying to do, what they're doing at the minute and what they want to achieve, you can work out where to go.
Yeah.
And I don't really agree that customers are trying to sell HF600 for a bit more margin and things like that, because why would you sell HF600 at £150 a reel if the right application's cobalt and that's £1,000 a reel?
Mm-hmm. It's the knowledge is missing though, isn't it? In selling the cobalt, the knowledge is missing, or they've not been trained, or they don't know, or they've never come up against that. Somebody's phoned up and said somebody else has phoned me because somebody else has phoned them and they want the HF600.
Yeah. We have some very loyal distributors around the country who have learned from us, who understand what's happening, who resell different wires, you know, for the right applications. And it's fantastic to see. You know, I really enjoy them conversations where someone rings me up and knows what they're talking about and we can talk about it properly. But then flip side of the coin is there's a lot of people we don't deal with who I've had conversations with and it doesn't go any further than a conversation. Which is,
it's sad, isn't it? But I think obviously you're open to those conversations. Yeah, people can find you on LinkedIn and stuff like that.
Yeah, look, I have an open door policy. If somebody wants to see a manufacturing process and get an understanding of hard facing, I want the end user to have the right result.
Me too.
That's what's important at the end of the day.
Yeah.
You know, everybody, of course, we want to move more boxes off the shelf and things like that, but the most important thing is the end user and them having the right solution.
I agree. And going back to what we said, the industry seems a little bit volatile at the moment. This is just stepping back from what you do, but there's been an all-out war on SG2 wire at the minute. And I'm just like, I'm baffled by it. I'd need to stock it because people come in and buy a few rolls, or a new machine might go out with it. But it's become an all-out war. People are selling it cheaper than it's ever been sold out there at the moment. And I'm starting to see the same thing with stainless steel. And I just think that there's a bit of an all-out war. Now, is that desperation fueled? Is not the work or business there at the moment, in your opinion? Or do you think, I know you came in earlier, you said May is always a funny month, and I completely agree. There's 2 very substantial bank holidays in May. And this one stems over the school holidays, doesn't it? So people tend to take the full week off and 2 weekends. And I hear people saying that things seem to be a little bit quiet. And one of the things I regularly hear, because everybody wants to tell me things, they believe that the work's just not out there at the moment. And when I speak to people, well, the work's not out there at the moment. We're under the pressure to meet these targets, to hit these targets, to sell this amount of stuff. But I don't think the people above laying that on us understand that the work's not out there at the moment. I've got my take on that, and it falls into quite a lot of what you've already said. But what do you think about that?
I think the industry as a whole is suffering this year. I don't think that it's as busy as it has been before, but I do think that there are still projects and work out there. The all-out wars, you're saying, that seems to go through cycles where the industry is quite incestuous.
Very much so. I've heard that word very recently. Yeah.
People who's been at one place, I mean, even me, I've been to 3 hard-facing OEMs. Right. In my career, the 3 biggest hard-facing OEMs in the world. Okay. So it is incestuous. People will move from one OEM to another, to a distributor, from a distributor up to a wholesaler. Everybody knows everybody. And whenever there's a big move in the industry, there's always that feeling of needing to stamp your authority on your new company where you are now. Right. Not naming names, but I think you can see that in the industry. There's been a few relatively big moves in the last year or so. Sure, yeah. And I think you can see it. I mean, I went to a place up in Scotland and they're paying £5 a kilo for HF600 wire. Right. I've never, ever seen wire that cheap.
HF600 at that price? Yeah. Wow.
But they're not making more margin on it. They're selling it cheaper to compete with somebody who's buying from somebody else down the road. So the war on SG2 stainless, it's also happening in the market now with HF600.
I remember something that my dad said. I think somebody once stood on the toes of one of our customers, and my dad phoned him up direct. He went, "Oh, is that so-and-so?" From the competitor, and he went, yeah. He said, listen, he said, I don't sell everyday consumables to make my living. My skill set is what makes my living. He said, so if you want to go to war, you're going to war with the wrong person. And he went, what do you mean? He said, I can sell the consumables at a loss if I need to, because my skill set is what puts food on the table. That customer quickly backed off, but it's something I want to kind of just, I think he had a really good point. Why does everybody need to get into the war of getting to the bottom of the price point? Because there's no way back.
I think you said it in a few podcasts earlier, though, as well, that everybody knows the price of everything but the value of nothing.
Oh, that's rife at the moment. That is absolutely rife right now.
Yeah.
People are going to phone you, and people are going to get a couple of hours of a conversation. They're going to get invited down to see you. You're going to talk about everything. Then you're going to probably make a site visit. You're going to go see their stuff. You're going to see what they're doing. You see what they're up against. That's value. At that point, there's no invoice changed hands. There's nothing being charged. It's you trying to educate people, which will get people to come back.
Yeah, the education side of it's so important. We mentioned earlier, the knowledge is missing. There is a gap in the industry between people retiring or, passing away and things like that, and young people coming into the industry with enthusiasm, with passion, wanting to learn.
There's very few people coming into any industry at the moment with passion and enthusiasm, but more so in this one. Maybe because we work in it, maybe because we're passionate about it, but I'm seeing fewer and fewer people either coming into it. You mentioned something really important earlier. There's not even people coming in to the distribution level in the industry anymore.
It's not sexy. That's what it boils down to. It's not a sexy industry to work in.
AI is, though, isn't it?
AI is, yeah. Well, let's get on that cobot. Let's pre-program this to do that.
It's the only reason I'm staying single. Yeah. I can just create my perfect wife.
There you go. And it won't talk back.
She'll be mute. She will be mute. That is the main reason for staying single. But it's not. But I think it should be sexy. Sheldon said the word sexy when he was speaking about it. And it makes me feel a bit cringy thinking about Sheldon saying, sorry, Sheldon, sorry, pal. But when he says sexy, it makes me feel a bit cringy. But it's not glamorous, and it should be, because there's so much knowledge. You're working at a scientific level, not just on the physics side, but also on the chemical side. There's... Oliver hates chemistry, my son. Absolutely detests it. He's like, I'm going to burn my books after my exams. But ultimately, there's so much that I've learned from being in the industry, thinking, actually, yeah, and that all ties in now. And it's just missing the lust for the learning. So does that come down to the fact that chemistry is so boring at school and people don't want to do it, and physics is so boring at school because it's not glamorized, that people aren't wanting it, and it's a skill set they're going to need to come into this industry to stand above everybody else? That is a concern. But on the other side of it, like, it should be sexy. Like, think about the places you could go. You just mentioned power stations. Power stations are not like now what they used to be in the 60s, when you were going to get your limbs chopped off and you were going to come out, you didn't know what you was breathing in. In most places, they're extremely clean now.
Yeah, I mean, if you imagine a power station generating 20 megawatts of energy,
yes,
is ran by 12 people at any one time, because they implement AI and things like that to make it so it can be ran on small shift patterns.
And also very small footprints now.
Yes.
That size power station used to be huge, didn't it? It used to be enormous, to the level of now, when it's flattened and all the cooling towers have gone, and they build these small micro power stations that create more energy in most cases with a smaller footprint. Like you say, it's all about moving forward. The jobs haven't gone. Those jobs go elsewhere because there is other things to do. But working in a power station is cool. What about working in the defence sector with some of your very exotic materials, which I know we do use in the defence sector? Surely that's cool.
I love it. There's places I've been which I can't name because, Department of Defence and everything. Yeah. But going in somewhere where they're building certain equipment and things like that, and selecting the right material for them for the right place at the right time. Yeah, I mean, it's fantastic. I will say there was one place where I went where they're manufacturing munitions.
Yes.
And that was an eye-opener.
Right, okay. In what way? Just the technology, how it was done?
We imagine welding with gold.
I know exactly what you're talking about.
So when you're looking at gold, platinum, plutonium, silver, their stores are worth multi-millions and millions of pounds.
Yeah.
And it's strip search on the way in, it's strip search on the way out.
Yeah.
But for me, it's interesting. Metallurgy in general is interesting.
And it's something that's lacking in the industry.
Massively,
I feel.
Yeah.
You want to talk about a sexy job, and something that's, I think, very much on par with doctors, intellects, physics engineers, scientists. It's up there on that level of knowledge. Yet, at the moment, also, people without any of that knowledge are saying, I'll tell you what, we'll start selling some of this welding kit. It seems like a good job to have a crack at. I think that's another problem in the industry at the moment. Because then some distributor around the road is going to say, oh, bloody hell, let's get them set up and open them an account. They're selling the wrong products into the wrong applications, into the wrong customers. Oh, I made a killing this month, sold some hard-facing HF600 wire.
Yeah, but it's a systemic problem in the industry at the minute. Like we've said, there isn't the knowledge in here that there was 10 years ago. I think that's a blatant fact. I think you can see that everywhere. End users all across the country, you can see that the knowledge is seeping out of the industry. Okay. And then these other people who chuck their hat in the ring, it's blind leading the blind.
Which is a very, very, well, if I put it on people are scared about like outsourcing to China. And people are scared of outsourcing to India and other places. But the fear factor is, for me, the fact that they're getting it right. People quite often say, but the stuff from other places, the stuff that we have imported, the stuff from China is not as good. Talking about products, not wires as such, but talking about products, it could be any product. There's a reason why people are so scared of China and other places in the world. It's because they do get the technology right. They do spend the money in R&D. They do use the right materials. They're not scared of it. And we seem to have been left behind as a country, I think, at the minute. I don't know what you feel about that.
I think 20 years ago, it was easy to say the quality of products coming in wasn't as good, whether that be wire, consumables, or finished parts.
Or your phone or your car.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, we're talking about everything.
Yeah, so 20 years ago, it was fairly fair comment to say if it comes from India or China or somewhere like that.
And I agree with that, 100%, yeah.
But I don't think there's bad products anymore.
I don't think there's bad products anymore. I remember growing up as a kid, you'll remember this, very similar age, everything was made in Taiwan. Do you remember them cars that you had with a key and you used to put the key in the back and I think you pulled it back and you pressed the button on the key and the car shut off. I was obsessed with those. My mum used to get me them. I'd play with that until my dad came home from work. Made in Taiwan. It probably didn't last very long. It wasn't great. And 20 years ago, let's put it into the industry. Some of the inverters that were coming into the industry 20 years ago were absolutely appalling.
Some of the wires as well, you'd use SG2 and it'd have bits of bike chain hanging off it. You could tell it, but it wasn't great.
And now I received a video only the other week of an SG2 wire factory in China built over a river because they use barges to get the ore from one end of the factory to the other because it's such a big organisation. There's not a bad product anymore. But in the UK, number one, we're not producing, we're not manufacturing in many places. There's very few people manufacturing any more products. And that scares me a little bit.
Well, so Corewire are the last metal cord and flux cord manufacturer in the UK.
That's sad, isn't it? That is sad. How many did there used to be 25 years ago?
Yeah, all the big players had lines here to manufacture, but where it now? We're the last ones.
Here to stay, hopefully.
It's our 50-year anniversary next year.
Oh, wow.
We aren't going anywhere. We're producing all day, every day. We export, we supply in the UK. So we're happy with where we are and what we're doing. But I think the key difference between us and what you might see in the industry, we are hard-facing specialists.
Yes.
We don't do joining wires or SG2 or stainless steel or aluminium. We make wires.
Specialise in what protection.
You do. Yeah. So we are the hard-facing specialists. It's what we do. It's what we've always done. It's what we'll carry on doing.
Tell us about something really interesting. I know you've told me the story of the 100-year company. Tell me something that you've done really, really interesting that might be an eye-opener to the people listening, because this is such an interesting conversation to have. Come on.
There's so many different things to look at, and it all boils down to selecting the right product for the right application.
So we've got somebody who they make cement.
Yep.
Let's go down that route.
Okay, so if anybody knows the process of making cement, it's basically raw material into a giant mill. If you imagine a flour mill, but the rolls weigh 50 ton.
Right.
So that sort of thing. Them rolls, they have to run for 350 days a year.
Okay.
They have to. There's no way around it. They're on, and that's it. If there is a breakdown, the cost of it not running is like £1 million a day. It's crazy money.
Right.
So when you weld one of these rolls, you weld it to last.
Yes.
So the cost of the material, it might be 20 quid or 30 quid a kilo. Doesn't matter. makes no difference, and you're going to deposit maybe 5 ton over a 1 week period.
Right.
At that price.
Okay.
But you're looking at chrome carbide types of wire. You're not looking at standard wires. You need something that's tough, that'll handle friction, handle abrasion, handle heat, because when you've got 2 surfaces running on each other, it generates a lot of heat.
Laws of physics.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So selecting the right material, for me, I look at it and it's not difficult. I know
exactly what needs to be used in that environment.
Exactly. Because you can't buffer it either. And you can have 80 mil gouges. So you're filling 80 mil with a material that can be 70 Rockwell.
So, and you know that like John or Dave round corner is going to do that at full amperage, don't you? He's going to have his machine cranked up so high that, you can see it from space.
Well, let's just go into the metallurgy of wire quickly, because you just brought that up. So a couple of things that people need to know about HF600 and hard facing.
Yeah. So number one is I'm going to jump in straight here. End's fallen off my torch. I'm just doing a little bit. My end's fallen. Can you send me another torch out? Why do you need another torch? Well, end's fallen off. I'm doing this hard facing job with this HF600. Well, what kind of voltage are you running at? Oh, yeah, we got it. Oh, I don't know. Meters don't work. We haven't had it calibrated. Everything's on full, but it's glowing. It's like full, and tips are snagging after 5 minutes. Error number 1.
Yep.
Yeah. Tell me why.
So, hard facing wire is made for the metallurgy that's in the wire.
Yes.
Okay. The higher amperage, the higher voltage you run at, the less properties you get out of that wire.
Especially when it cools.
Yeah. So if you're welding at, and I've seen it, 32, 34 volts.
I've seen that regularly.
Amps, yeah, 450 amps.
Wrong gas.
Because it goes down so quickly. It's going to go down quickly. But
it's not going to go anywhere.
You're paying 150 quid a reel for mild steel at that point. What you've got when you've put it down is mild steel.
It is. By the time it's cooled down, it's not hard facing wire anymore.
No.
And people don't understand that.
No. You want to run as low as you can possibly get while still getting a decent looking weld.
You want that voltage low. It wants to
24.
24 volts, 25 volts maximum.
Yeah. And like 170. If you can get the amps. Now, a lot of machines nowadays don't have different settings. You can't, the amps, the wire feed runs at the same as the
it's synergic curve,
yeah. Yeah, which can be a little bit difficult.
Unless you get a machine with a really good synergic curve where the company's spent hundreds of thousands of pounds on the R&D of that synergic curve, like, some of the best players in the market, then ultimately it just matches. And going back to what I believe in, when you deal with a company like EWM or Fronius or somebody like that, they're going to go out, and if you're struggling, you're going to say, right, my mate Aaron, he's got me this wire for this job and I don't have a synergic curve for this. So then my mates are going to say to me, right, you need to get some weld properties for us, Baz, on this particular material, and then you send all that to us and we're going to make a synergic curve for you. That's when the value is there. That's when the value's worth it.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, I was on the phone to a customer who had a reel of our wire and they couldn't get it to run. It just wasn't going down. And he sent me pictures of the welds and it wasn't great. So we keep back 3 lots from each batch we manufacture.
Right, okay.
So we actually have test spools in our stores of each batch, 3 samples. So we can get the batch number. We actually tested it, welded it. We had no problem. There was no issue with it. The welds look nice. I'll show you afterwards. I've got all the pictures. The welds look absolutely fine. No problem at all. This customer wasn't used to using a cord wire. So he's trying to weld it like a solid wire. Wrong settings, wrong technique. You can move fairly quickly with a cord wire. It'll deposit 30% faster than a solid
35% faster.
Yeah. So they just weren't used to it. And they were building up what looked like a pigeon,
welding with a cushioning effect, completely putting it on top and on top and on top.
Exactly. But, it only takes a phone call, change your settings, do this, move a little bit quicker, change the angle of the gun, push, don't pull, pull, don't push, whichever you need. And everything then runs fine and everyone's happy. But being able to diagnose that over the phone and just getting back to the hard facing. So that was number 1, that, people ramp up the voltage and the amperage is way too high and destroy the properties of the wire.
Completely.
Number 2, I'm going to ask you, how many layers are you putting down?
Oh, the only... We want to get it down as fast as possible. I hate hard-facing welding. So I'm going to turn everything up. I'm going to bang it all in as hard as possible so it's going to fall off or it's going to be soft anyway. And then ultimately, I've done it. I won't need any more hard-facing Baz for another couple of weeks. Well, you will. Because normally they just try and bang it on one layer.
Yeah. And one layer is a problem with standard hard-facing wire.
It's not enough.
No. So, most people in the industry who's been here for a bit will understand dilution of base material. Okay? You put down one layer and half of that wire mixes with the base material.
With the base material.
So you've got 50% hard, 50% whatever the base is. The second layer, you're at 75% hard, 25%.
100%.
Yeah. And then the third layer, that's when you hit your hardness.
That's your hardness.
So unless your wire is designed to get hard in one layer, all of these data...
That sounds like that sounds like an advert for some kind of pill that you can take, doesn't it?
I should put that on business cards.
Yeah.
Get hard in one layer.
Get hard in one layer, yeah.
Yeah. But unless the wire is designed to get hard in one layer, all these data sheets that say 56, 58 Rockwell, it's not 56 or 58 Rockwell.
It's irrelevant. It doesn't mean anything.
You're looking at 42 to 45 on an HF600 on one layer. So it's not that hard.
No, it's really not. And again, it's lack of knowledge. Somebody's probably, I've got to do this job now. Or, I've got a job here now. I'm going to do this hard facing. I've told them I've done it before. And it's the lack of knowledge is missing. So tell us about another job. Tell us about something else that you've done that's really cool.
So I've worked on a hydrothermal recarbonisation kiln.
Right, pretty awesome. Tell me about it. What's the process? What do we do?
It was a thermal spray process.
Thermal spray?
Yeah, it had to be because you needed a really thin layer.
Super thin.
Super thin. You talk 500 microns.
Yeah.
Over 11 metres long.
So that comes out like a mist?
It comes out like a grinder.
Really?
All the sparks come out, yeah.
Right.
So it's an interesting process. Very interesting.
So what kind of machinery do you use for that?
It would be an arc spray.
Right, an arc spray.
Equipment, yeah, for that sort of thing.
You got one on site? Have you got one down there?
We haven't at our place at the minute.
Right, okay.
So yeah, but it was an interesting process, and 11 metres long, 150 lifters inside it. So getting inside a 1.2 metre diameter kiln to actually spray it in situ was not easy, let's say.
Okay.
But really interesting project, really interesting company. And the reason why we had to spray a special material was their process reacts with nickel. So you could not use nickel on the kiln.
Because it reacts.
Because it reacts and creates sulfide. Yellow, horrible yellow
products. It's grim, it stinks.
Yeah. So imagine spraying an 11 metre long, 1.2 metre diameter kiln with cobalt. And we all know the price of cobalt is, £80 a kilo, something
expensive,
like that. Yeah. So that was an interesting project.
Nice.
I've trained people from around the world. They've come and to the offices and we've spoke about different hard-facing techniques and different materials and why use this sort of material in this sort of application. And I've travelled a lot as well. I've been fortunate to, go around the world. And
where have you been?
Probably easy to say where haven't I been. I haven't been to South Korea before.
I think it'd be a really cool place to go as well.
Yeah.
I do. I do think it'd be a really cool place to go. But where have you been? Have you been to China?
No. So Asia, not so much. Europe, a lot of places. I've trained people from Chile and Guatemala and Vietnam and these sort of places. So
been out to Canada?
No. So Canada obviously is it's where my wife wants to move to when we retire, funnily enough.
Good on your wife. Yeah. Good call.
Yeah. And
Good call, Mrs. Cooper.
She it's her dream to go there, but that's by the by. We'll see what happens. I've got 25 years left of work to do still. Yeah,
because you're younger than me. Yeah, I might beat you to it then. I might get to retirement villa before you get there.
Maybe.
Maybe.
I think the thing is that all around the world, everybody has different access to different equipment and different materials.
And different products.
So it's hard facing as a standard globally could benefit so much from just having some more information and more knowledge.
Right, so you've got now your perfect opportunity. We've spoke about HF600. So let's talk about something that you think's missing, people need to know about, that you can help people with. Go on, here's your minute.
Okay. For piling or any screws, conveying screws and things like that, they are 99% pure abrasion because they're moving material from one side to the other.
Okay.
There is a product that we've developed that's relatively new that we now have in multiple piling companies and people doing screw conveyors across the UK. And it is perfect for the application. It gets hard in one layer.
One layer?
One layer.
Nice.
Gets hard. And you're talking 62 Rockwell with one layer. So it's very hard. Price-wise, it's very similar to an HF600.
Right,
There's not that much difference between the two. And yeah, it's got niobium in it, it's got chrome in it, it's chrome carbide wire, carbon.
And it does it in one layer?
Does it in one layer. I've got some in my car. If you've got a welder, we'll put it on afterwards and you can try and grind it.
I've got loads of welders here. None of them work because we're welding for repair, but that's cool.
But again, it's not going to be suitable for every application.
Definitely not.
But for the applications that it is suitable for, I don't think there's a better material in the industry.
And you make that in your factory?
Everything. We don't buy in products to resell. Everything we do, we make ourselves.
Tell me about something else. Come on, a different situation. Something that might catch me out. Something that maybe Baz hasn't been to before. I know there's not very many places, but come on, let's hear.
Okay, I've been in a situation where we've put a wire in that's 10 times better for what they're doing at the minute and caused more problems than what they had before. That's happened to me personally. If you imagine this, I'm at a customer, they're welding this wire. It's a pure abrasion problem.
Pure abrasion problem, right, okay.
We put down a hard material, hard in one layer, get it down, no problem.
Right.
2 weeks later, the entire part has fell apart from corrosion.
Fell apart from corrosion?
Because it was wearing so quickly and they were re-welding every week, because it didn't wear, because of abrasion, we introduced a corrosion problem because then it began corroding away. And because it corroded, it spread over the entire part. So it wasn't one small area that needed rewelding. The entire part needed replacing.
Yeah. And wow. Interesting. So how did you go about that going forward? Obviously the part gets replaced, but then what do? You
have to go back to the drawing board because there is no point in making it last longer if it's going to affect the rest of the part. Think of it, a chain and link.
Yeah.
You don't want to make the link really hard to last longer because it'll wear the chain out.
Yeah.
So you actually need to match what you're trying to do. Yeah.
Wow. And what's good about that particular conversation is you said, we did this job. This particular product was far better for the problem in hand, but we actually caused more problems. Yeah. And holding your hand up and admitting that's really cool. It's not very many people. A lot of people have brush it under the carpet, forget about it.
This is why it's so important to get information at the start of a conversation, because if we'd have got a bit more information about the general environment around the part, about, the gases that were involved in that area, we could have said, hang on a minute, because if we're going to put something in that makes that last longer, does that mean then because you're not going in weekly, it's going to cause a problem further along? That's when test parts come up. You can do a paddle, put that in and see what it looks like afterwards, rather than going directly onto the production part. And what I did with that company I'm working with now, they came down to the office and then I went up to their office and we did tests on production parts. So after we'd done all the tests in the workshop, we then went and tested production parts.
Interesting. This is really cool. And this is your Monday to Friday, your daily drive. This is what you're up against. This is what you do. So you're obviously sales, but very technical. I wouldn't class it as sales, I'd say. And I don't like the term sales engineer because people get given that job and quite often the term, it's just a term. They're not an engineer. They're basically working in sales with a little bit of knowledge. But you are an absolute knowledge base in what you do. So you're actually an engineer in what you do. That's really good.
Yeah, I think I look at myself more as a paid consultant than anything else. Obviously we have targets to hit.
Sure, everybody does.
It is, everything falls down to sales. Everybody is selling something at some point.
Somewhere, yeah.
Exactly. But my focus and my interest is making sure that the end user gets the right solution. That's whether I'm dealing direct or whether I'm dealing through a distributor.
Right.
My pure 100% focus is making sure they get the right solution, because it's not just Corewire's reputation on the line, it's mine as well.
Yes.
And I've been in the industry for 20 odd years, and you're not going to let that happen, are you? Exactly. It's the same as you know what you're selling is the right product for your customer.
Exactly. And it's funny you should say that. I got a phone call yesterday, and I think they caught me like at the bad point in the day. And this guy phoned up. He had a particular CNC machine, and I'm not going to say who made it or what brand it is or whatever, but it had a hypertherm plasma on there, which, but he kind of phones up with the doesn't give you a chance to speak spiel. So I'm sat there listening, and he's just like throwing everything at me. And then he turns around and says, and I phoned you because you're local. So maybe you're going to be a little bit cheaper than the manufacturer to come out and have a look at it if you just pass it. To which I scratch my head and I think, right, okay, well, I know the product very well. I don't think you've got a problem with your hypertherm plasma, to be honest, whatsoever. I can almost guarantee you haven't. But ultimately, I don't know your machine. I've never seen your machine before. I know what brand and make it is, but I don't know yours. So I don't know what's been done to it. I don't know what kind of workload it's had. I'm not in a position to just come and throw my eyes over a proper CNC machine and say, oh yeah, it's this. I can sort that in 15 minutes or 2 hours or whatever. If you pay me to come out, I'm going to come out, I'm going to have a proper look at it, but we're going to need to book you in for a full day. And that's a full day without me taking calls, without me replying to emails, without me sorting out problems for other people. So it comes at a cost. So he said, well, what's the cost? And I told him, and he said, well, that's what the manufacturer want to charge me to come out for a day. So my reply to that was, so why do you think as a specialist I should be any cheaper than the manufacturer? So if you bring in a TIG welder to me or a MIG welder, yeah, we can work on those on an hourly rate. But again, there will be jobs that I walk away from. But you're talking about a machine that's got software that's probably locked down in places that we can't get access to, that works with a hypertherm machine, which I don't think you've got a problem with. So ultimately, you want me to come and have a look at your product. Why should I be cheaper than the engineer they're going to send out from the manufacturer? And he was like, well, I kind of get your point, but surely it's not right. I went, you got my details. You've called me. I haven't called you. Have a think about what I've said. You need my assistance. The cards are on the table.
It boils back down to price of everything, value of nothing. It's exactly what it is. It's it seems to have hit the industry and just snowballed. That a lot of end users now, I think that the internet becoming what it is now over the last 20 or so years, so much information is readily available that a lot of people think that they can be experts without really knowing anything about the subject matter.
You're just repeating a script, aren't you? You're just simply reading a script. You're simply deploying something that you've read to somebody and it makes you sound good. Mm-hmm. And if you can convey that cleverly enough and convincingly enough, oh, he knew his stuff. Doesn't mean you do, does it? It's not learned knowledge.
I had the conversation with a guy, heated conversation, shall we say, when he was saying, no, it's got to be this wire and it's got to have 2% vanadium in it.
Okay.
And I just said, I didn't realise you were a metallurgist. What does 2% vanadium do to the wire?
Did he give you an answer? Did he give
No, he didn't.
Okay.
He didn't. And it was one of them where the product was good for what he wanted to do. You know, it was okay, but there is better. Mm-hmm. So it was one of them conversations where in the end you must have them all the time, where you put your hands up and go, okay, you've got my details.
I had one the other day. Somebody phoned me up and said, I'm on this particular job. I've been told I need to use this particular gas. So my response to that was, are you working to a welding procedure where that gas is actually on the welding procedure? Has something been tested and verified and witnessed and mechanicals been done on it to start with? It goes super quiet at that point, normally. And I was like, I'm not here to trip you up, but I need the answer to the question. They'll either turn around and say, well, they'll change it then. I've just been told that we need to use this gas. Right, okay, well, I don't think you need to use that gas. And one situation that we come up against with this time and time again is a gas supplier selling exotic gases when a simple 2% CO2 in argon will suffice, especially in stainless steel applications in MIG-MAG where we're using a solid wire. But the problem is people try and bang it in at 35 volts impulse, 400 amps knocking knackers out at mains, and everything's black. Well, it's going to be black. Stainless steel suffers very badly from that situation. If you put it in too hot, it's not going to be stainless steel when it cools down. And they don't realise that. I do agree with, the less CO2 in when you're welding, stainless steel is better, but as long as you keep it under the 3%, go for a 2%, a good synergic curve, learn your process, master the technique. But the problem is, I think as well, and I don't know if you see this, but people tend to skip out the important step of, well, we've never gone down the route of getting a proper welding procedure done for that job. We've never gone down the route of paying. We're not paying somebody to do them. We've never paid for that before. Why do we want to do that? Oh, we don't need the mechanicals. We don't need a stuff calibrated, do we, John? We don't need a stuff calibrating. No, Jeff, we've never had it go. I know how I set it. I put it to that white Tipex mark there, and I always run it at that amperage and voltage, and we don't need that. But ultimately, they don't realise that by getting your welding procedures done and going to that next level, getting all your metallurgic tests done and your mechanical tests done, they don't realise that you're actually proving what you're doing is right.
Yeah, 100%. And this is where the value add comes back in as well, because even for that company I'm working with at the minute, 100 years old, blah, 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 we're going to write their welding procedures for them with our wire.
Brilliant.
Because then they've got something that they can go to. And this is why I say, I'm very lucky that I've always worked with really clever people, and I've got a team behind me who can do that, because I couldn't write a welding procedure.
Okay.
Not a full. I could tell them amperage, voltage, preheat, post-heat, the simple stuff.
Yeah.
But the actual full welding procedure, there's a team behind me who can do that.
Brilliant.
And it's important, but a lot of smaller companies don't bother with it because it's cost involved and everybody's cutting their margins. So razor thin on everything, any additional cost actually makes a big difference to their business.
Yeah. And it's having the balls, isn't it, to kind of stand your ground a little bit and go, I'm more expensive because of this.
And I think me and you are both the same on that point. For every one customer I take on, I will walk away from 5. Because if it does not fit both people, both companies in the right way, there's no point.
I want to help people ultimately, and that's the idea behind season 2. I want the education side to be vast for people to come back to and think, do you know what? I'm just going to phone Aaron or whoever else I get on. I want it to be educational. And I don't want it to become an advertising platform for people to come on and bitch about the competitors and tell everybody else what they do, which somebody else does in a different colour. I don't want this season to be that. I want this season for people to come in and tell good stories about good stuff with good answers, good solutions, but knowledge. Because ultimately, if we put this out once, the knowledge is out there for people to learn from. And then they can build the trust in, well, that guy that Barry had on, Aaron, why don't we just phone him? And they'll say, oh, I've heard you on Barry's podcast. You can say, right, okay, let's all have a meeting at Barry's and we can sort it out. And let's talk about it. From my point of view, I haven't asked you this question yet, but what welding machines have you got down there that you're doing? Yeah, come on.
They're blue.
Oh, are they?
Yeah. But I think you know which ones they are.
They're not bad though, are they?
Sometimes for some of the sub-art work that we're doing, things like that, you're running 4mm wire.
Yeah, I love a good sub-arc at 750 amps.
Exactly, or chain them together, see 1250 there.
Oh, I love that.
It happens. And I mean, I've always used those machines, if I'm honest with you, just because that's what my employers always had.
Yes.
But I use the old transformer-based models.
Yeah.
Not the new inverter, the little dainty ones. I use the ones that you have to move with a fork truck. You'd have enjoyed it at there's a company in Birmingham that manufactures thermal spray equipment.
Right, okay.
And that's an impressive facility. So some of the stuff that they're doing is really cool, like an ID HVOF spraying machine that'll do, I think, down to 60 mil. So internal, you can go down to 60 mil diameter and put an HVOF torch inside it. That's pretty cool.
Wow.
Yeah, this is UK-based manufacturing, by the way. You know, they manufacture in the UK. We manufacture in the UK.
There still is some really good companies in the UK. Some of them come under a military badge or an MOD badge, and some of them don't. But there's some bespoke little places that are just so cool. There's been so many people phone, just digressing a little bit. Is Oliver going to come and help you out? Well, he comes and he sits in here and he kind of looks at me going grey by the second when I answer phone calls, like some of the stuff that we spoke about today, or another machine turns up and somebody else wants something else sorting, and they want to push into the front of the queue, and I say, are you not interested remotely in coming into the business? And I don't know if you've seen some of Oliver's fighting stuff, but it's pretty phenomenal, and he also speaks like multiple languages, so he's far too gifted. And he looks at me and goes, are you mad? Are you actually mad? And I'm like, why? Come on, come and help your dad. And then I think about, well, actually, you're probably doing a good thing. But there's a massive lack of young people coming into the industry. And I would like to think about when I'm laid in my final hours, thinking that ultimately I might have helped get some people back into this industry somehow. And I don't know how we're going to do it. And I'm open to everybody saying, let's get these kids, young adults, into situations where we can at least try and make it sexy again somehow.
I think it's different for people like me and you of our age, where we are now, because for us, this is sexy.
It is completely for me, I know. Whereas
the younger generation, you know, my youngest, he's looking for a marketing apprenticeship now. He's 17. He's trying his best. He's applying for everything under the sun. If he wanted a welding apprenticeship, I could probably get him one tomorrow. I know enough people.
We could get him one now. I could make a phone call. We could get him in now.
But he has no interest in welding. Sales, potentially. And he's always had a bit of me about him as well. So sales and marketing he might go into. But there's actually a training school now in Derby that does a lot of welding.
What are they called?
I think they're called Better Weld.
Not heard of them.
It's relatively new. I've visited them once. I've actually got it down to go and see them again, because I think that Corewire as a company, we would happily invest in bringing on a younger generation, because the best people for sales and distributors and wholesalers are people who's been on the tools.
I'm going to mention it off mic, but there's a place where you can definitely go and speak to somebody. It's huge. I've not been in yet, but I think it would be a good place for you to also go, because, and I want to put this forward now about the places where I go. Number one, I think there's been too much done and said about getting virtual systems into places. I don't think that's any good. Although it's good to kind of turn the mindset, I've got an issue with, you put somebody in a VR headset or a VR welding helmet and then expects them to be able to weld. You know, we might have drastically reduced the training time or whatever, and we might have drastically reduced consumable use in a college that doesn't have money to spend on rods and material. I get that. But I think you're selling them the wrong story, because the minute you put them in a helmet with some overalls on where they're going to get sweaty and boots that might hurt their feet for a couple of weeks until they break them in, and they're welding at good amperages with a little bit of fume, and they've got to deal with it, I think we're selling them the wrong story there. I think if you want to be a welder, get them in a welding hood, get them in a welding helmet, get them behind some welding kit, get them into a place where they're making some good stuff. Now, the other thing is we need to be making a lot of good stuff in UK again, don't we? And I think, you know, hopefully that might come back, especially with, you know, what's going on in the world at the moment. We're going to have to be self-sufficient, but we need to get kids pulling triggers, even if it's, look what I made today. Can you remember going home, like, as you know, from school, it might have been woodwork or metalwork, and saying to your mum and dad, look what I made today.
I still have mine. I have a dovetail box that I made in woodworking in year 7.
Awesome.
I've still got it. It's still there. It's still keeps bits in it.
So my wooden project was a set of disco lights. Do you know the ones that used to look like a rainbow when you put perspex on the front? So they wouldn't let me wire them in school because they didn't have the knowledge. So me and my dad wired them here. And it was like, it used to do the rainbow thing, and they were great. And my steel work, I made some speaker stands in a Z. So you could so it just looked like a Z, and it were 2 plates and an angular piece, and they were cool. I think one's still in my mum's. They only had enough money at school to let me build one. I couldn't make a pair, so me and my dad made a second one. Yeah,
I agree with you though. I mean, virtual welding and actual welding, yes, the technique, you can get that, blah blah blah, but unless you can smell the nickel or the chrome or the steel, at the end of the day.
See the colours as well. They're really important, and I want to stress this. I use a particular helmet, and this is not turning into an advertising show, but because I do a particular job in a particular place in the world where I want to see the colour of the glow, it's an automated process. But when I'm there in an area where I'm the only person in, I'm the only person who will go in, I'm the only person who goes in, everybody else stands outside, I've got the helmet on, I want to see what colour it is, and I can stand outside and say to everybody, we'll be fine with this. You've got to understand. And different materials have slightly different glows. Sometimes you'll be welding with a material and you see 2 colours coming off the glow, and then it's running right. Sometimes you get them 2 colours and you think, hang on a minute, I'm doing something wrong, depending on what the material is. You're never going to get that. You might be able to simulate it, and then somebody can tell you, oh, are you seeing 2 colours in there? Or are you doing it wrong then? But until you've actually done it and had a test fail, and then why is that test failed? I think that needs to come back. And then when you go home on a night, you say, I'd love to be able to tell you what I've been working on today, but it's so top secret, I can't. I think there's so much cool stuff out there still to do.
The problem is, and you must see this, you said to me, you're not on LinkedIn all the time.
I go on just to poke the bear.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But if you go on LinkedIn now, for a lot of the recruitment in the welding industry, people are getting slated because they're offering £14 an hour for TIG welders.
Right.
You can get 13 quid an hour stacking shelves at Aldi.
You can get 14 quid an hour at Aldi.
So where's the benefit of the kids learning a trade, getting in there, when the rates that they're seeing up front aren't there? I mean, years ago it was 25, 30 quid an hour.
75 grand a year to drive a train.
Yeah.
Yeah. And my mate's doing it. I think that's his retirement job because he's turned soft. I'm going to tell him he's turned soft. But, didn't want to come and work here. Offered him a great job and some good incentives. I think I'm going to have a bit of an easy life, BAZZA, and go drive a train, which is cool. And we need train drivers, but we need welders.
Yeah.
And 14 quid an hour is not going to cut it. Not today's market anyway.
The country will fall apart if we don't get these skills coming through. It will, because even when you're not looking, when you're walking down the street, when you're seeing something, there's welding everywhere.
Everywhere.
Everywhere. Whether you're in a fab shop doing rails, gates, stairs, anything like that, or whether you're in a MOD place where you're welding submarines, it don't matter. Welding is everywhere.
And it's always going to be everywhere.
Yeah.
Because at the moment, we do not have the facility to lay the atoms and the protons in a molecular level as a 3D print, not on world manufacture anyway.
But even 3D printing is welding. That's all it is. You're printing weld material.
We're doing it with really good machines now, aren't we? The Rapid Arc and the CMT from Fronius and Cold Arc's been doing 3D printing material for a long time, just not to the level that we need it.
Yeah, I mean, just going way back, changing the subject slightly, looking at the industry as it is now, we've said this year, it's been a little bit tough. I think people are struggling a little bit. But yeah. I personally don't think there's ever been a better time to join this industry. Our health and safety now is top notch.
Better than it's ever been.
The money in general is pretty good in the industry.
Yeah, and you can work up to really good salaries.
Exactly.
It comes with a skill set. If you're just going to stay in the same bay, pulling the trigger on the same part forever, then stay on your 14 quid. But if you're going to develop and learn about the metallurgy and learn about the chemistry behind things and move up and help companies as well, the company that you work for, I think that's when the value is really added.
Yeah, I think there's opportunities for people in the industry, whether that be on the sales side at distributors and wholesalers, or whether that be on the tools. And I think that those two places actually are really linked. A lot of salespeople are ex on the tools.
So if we've not got people on the tools, we're not going to get the salespeople.
Yeah.
Where's that leave us as a welding industry? As an engineering industry, where does that leave us going forward? You either buy stuff off somebody who's only selling it because that's what you've asked for, which I don't agree with, or you're going to buy from somebody who's got that little bit of knowledge, but it's not learned. It's not learned knowledge. It's, oh, this will do.
It's off a data sheet. It's out a book.
It's rehearsed. It's a rehearsed script.
Yeah.
I can do a rehearsed demonstration. I use this setting all the time. It welds great on stainless at 7.5 meters a minute. Yeah, we'll do it like that. Everybody will buy it.
Yeah,
but I don't do a demo like that. And I've recently got criticised by a competitor. Why don't you take Why don't you not take the manufacturing when you do a welding machine demo? Well, they're just going to show you it on that 7.5 meters a minute setting. And I'm going to say, right, what are we up against? And normally the people who come to me have got a problem anyway. So we've had to solve the problem with technology before we get there. And we're like, right, so this is what we've done. We've already had 50, 60 hours in it already. This is what we can do for you. And a lot of people are interested in doing that because they want the sale the minute they walk out the door. They don't want to put the 60 or 70 or 100 hours in first before you even get there.
Do you think that there's some distrust between wholesalers, OEMs to distribution?
Yeah, I do, massively. I do, and it's in first hand. I think it's in the last podcast. Loyalty comes up, but I actually understand after this price war that's going on at the moment with wire, stainless steel wires and things, and I can see things becoming cheaper and cheaper and cheaper, and people arguing over this, and, well, I can get it at that, and why are you charging this, and why are you charging that? Well, I've got it on shelf, and I bought it at this price all that time ago. So for me to make sure that I can keep my family fed and watered and the lights on and the business running, you pay this price for it from me. If you're buying it from somebody who's now buying it at this much cheaper price that we don't know where it comes from or whatever, or this price war, then I'm sorry, I can't get into that price war with you. I'm not interested in getting into that. So there's a distrust, because then people come back to you and go, hang on a minute, Baz, somebody's just quoted me this product 40% cheaper than you. All right, do you know what? That's better than I can buy it for right now. So you need to go buy it. And why don't you sell it to me? My customers hate that. But I've had to say that this week. Somebody said it about a particular wire. And I was like, you're buying that cheaper than me. You're buying that than I've paid for that. You're buying that cheaper than me. So you need to be selling that to me. If you can buy that product at that price, I'm in the wrong job. You should be doing my job. It goes quiet for a little bit. They're not going to be selling it or buying it at that price forever because they won't be able to substantiate it. Somebody's either done it as a job to kind of make somebody look more expensive, or somebody's selling a completely different product at a price point at the time when everybody's getting into a little bit of a trade war. I'm not getting into a trade war. If people want to go to war, I'm happy to do that. I really am. And I'm happy. I've said that over and over. My dad said it to people. But the industry doesn't need it. It needs knowledge. It needs loyalty. So what you just said, the distrust thing, why are they buying my machines? Why is he not buying our machines? Why have you not got them onto our wire? Why are they not buying our wire? So I've got that, and I hear that from a manufacturer level and maybe a distribution level, a wholesaler level. The distributors, they're like, well, so-and-so's been in, and I can buy this from him at that, or such and such a person's been in, and how come it's this price from them, but it's that price from you? So I understand why there's a distrust. Because there's a bit of a war going on and there's no flat line. So I tend to think, right, I step back. This is what I offer. This is my price point, and this is what I can give you. I don't want to have to go to war with anybody. I'm not getting into that chase to the bottom of the price bracket because there's nothing in it for anybody.
And because, like we said earlier, it doesn't rebound.
Doesn't rebound.
If SG2's at £1 a kilo now, bear in mind, back when I was selling SG2 20 years ago, it was like
pence at the minute.
I think it was 92p a kilo 20 years ago.
I don't know what's going on. I don't like, cause all that's going to happen is something's going to get stuck in a canal somewhere, or somebody's not going to be able to get iron ore or whatever, or somebody's not going to be able to get enough recycled bites to stick in to make it up to weight. I don't know. But then all of a sudden, you go to buy a ton of wire, because that's the cheapest way to buy it, isn't it, on that kind of stuff. And it's £8 or £9 a roll more expensive again, or £5 a roll more expensive. Then you've got to go to your customers and say, actually, it's this price again. Or there's the people that sell it at cost and then try and itch it up slowly. There's no profit in that stuff anyway, but it demises and diminishes the rest of the industry, because everybody just then thinks, well, everything should be that price point.
So, not putting words into your mouth, but looking at it then, you think that a lot of this price war and a lot of the distrust and things like that is from people maybe pushing their own agendas and their own egos into the industry rather than focusing on the end user and the right solution for the customer?
I think what you've said there is really good and interesting. I'm not going to answer it directly. What I am going to say is I do believe that some people need to sell stuff. And if they weren't selling welding equipment or welding consumables or welding goods, they'd probably be selling light bulbs or socks and underpants on a market stall, or cars, or houses. I'd just guess that some people sell stuff. And for some reason, they're in the welding industry thinking, it's all right, that welding industry game, innit? I think I'll have a crack at that while I'm selling some DeWalt stuff, or I'm selling some coal, or I'm going to sell some gas, but I'll start selling welding machines as well, because I'm selling gas. I might as well sell welding machines at the same time. What about grinding discs? Oh, I bet you can buy them and sell them at a really good market. So, hang on a minute. I'm selling car parts, but I can sell wire and cable and welding electrodes. So everybody seems to feel that, we can sell that. And then I think there's a pressure, because those kind of businesses, if it's a small distribution company, they're going to sell whatever they can. The wholesalers are a much bigger concern. They've got a much bigger flow rate. They've got a much bigger staff rate. They've got a much bigger cost at the end of each week and each month. Everybody's on a much bigger target. And normally a lot of this stuff's brought in, so it's got to be sold out. So they're given targets on the amount of stuff they need to move. They're told how much they need to move, be it machines or gloves or consumables or carpet. I don't care. They're told how much they need to move. So I think there's a pressure applied where, why have you not sold any wire this month? Why have you not sold any machines? Why have you not sold any carpets? Have you sold any beds and mattresses? Why have you not sold any socks and underpants? Well, they're buying them from somewhere. I think pressure is applied rather than helping people first. And I think if you put yourself out there to help people, it should come back.
I think it'd be really interesting to have somebody in the industry, but actually manufacturing using the wires, a customer on the podcast, to see from their point of view what they want from their suppliers. Because that's what people like me and you, that's what we look at. What is important to our customer? To our client, how are we going to get them to where they need to be? Yeah. And I think it'd be really interesting to hear from someone like that in their own words. I think going forward with season 2, I think it'd be really, really good to have a little bit more of a round table discussion as well. And I'd like to get you involved in that. But I want to get rid of the ego, and there's too much of it in the industry, and it pisses me off. And I know I'm swearing, I don't want to, and I've tried really hard not to, but I want to get rid of the ego, and bring people to the table, not just to talk about the industry and the end product, not just what they sell, not just what they do, not just what they've got access to, not just what they want to sell at the end of that conversation. I'd like to have a proper roundtable conversation. There's some good people in the industry still, and I think it'd be a really good conversation to have. So if you're up for that, I think what we'd also get from that conversation is the customer probably doesn't know what they need in some situations. If you're buying wire or tips or electrodes, they're going to say, well, I want the cheapest price. The people that are doing really well in the business at the moment that I think are customers that come to me and say, this is what we want to do. This is where we want to be.
And I say, are you sure you're coming to the right person? Because we're not going to be cheap. If that's what you're asking for, we're going to give you what you need, not what you want. Okay? I'm going to give you what you need. And we're going to it's going to be a few conversations, not just a quote typed up and sent to you. It's going to be a few conversations. And then we might need more conversations to prove that this is the right thing for you. It's a soul-destroying process sometimes, because you get an email at 5 to 5 on a Friday night and it sounds like everything's fallen through and it's not going to happen. And you put weeks and weeks and months of work into it. And in some cases for not a lot of profit, because you're doing it for the right reasons. And people don't want to do it if there's not a lot of profit in it. The people that are doing stuff and selling stuff where there's not a lot of profit in it, they're either doing it to keep an account open with somebody, or they're doing it to make somebody else look more expensive. I feel personally.
It's visual metric, isn't it? If you see a price that says it's £5 and the person you normally buy from is £8, it looks
cheaper.
Are they, loyalty, trust, are they ripping me off? Have they been ripping me off? What's happening? Yeah. It's difficult. It is. And I think, but salespeople in general get a bad rep. All salespeople in general have a bad rep.
And it doesn't matter what you're selling. Socks and underpants, carpet, UPVC windows, they used to get a lot of stick, didn't they? The Herbie guy that came around the vacuum cleaner, when they got the pictures out of the microscopic spiders in the bed, they used to get a bad rep, didn't they? I remember they came around to see my mum, yeah.
And people don't want to talk to us. That's why the conversations have become short, because we've gone to the way of, rather than speaking to 10 people a day, we're ringing 100 or 50 or whatever, and we're trying to hit as much as we possibly can to get these conversations, and people don't want it.
No.
So, I ring maybe 10, 20 people a day. When I'm on the road or whatever, I send emails out all the time, not to sell anything, but to start a conversation. Like, I don't know these companies. Are they hard facing? What are they hard facing? What's the temperature involved? What are they trying to get out of it? What's
the substances?
Yeah. So them conversations start there. And I think a lot of good people in the industry are like that. Some of the people and who you've had on as well. If you focus on that, because all we want is conversation.
Conversation, because it always leads to somewhere. And if you've helped somebody in your day, it doesn't matter, I think, quite often, if you've done a good deed and you've helped somebody, you probably forget about putting the invoice in. Genuinely, unless you're selling a product, if you've helped somebody, the invoice is irrelevant. You've done what you're good at. You've helped somebody, you've got them out of a predicament, you've helped them, and they will come back. And that's where the loyalty should be. At the moment, the market's not aimed towards that, though, is it?
But when customers build that trust with you and you have that openness and that honesty with them, I spoke to a guy the other day, and I've known him for many, many years. And I just said to him, look, I'm at Corewire now. Are you doing any of this on site? Is there anything that, we could maybe look at? And he sent back, nice to hear from you, mate. Honestly, we're not using anything at the minute. We've removed that area. We're doing this now. But if something comes up, I'll get in touch.
Yes.
That to me is perfect, because I know exactly where I stand. Now, if he'd have come back and went, not right now, call me in a month, call me in a couple of months, or, and it drags on and it drags on and it drags on, it becomes a nightmare. And you cover your area, I cover the UK and Ireland at the minute. The other reps at Corewire, one covers Europe, one's in Malaysia.
Is it one guy for Europe?
So we have 4 of us.
Wow.
And I just cover the UK and Ireland. I've got it easy. My boss, he was in America the other week, and then he had to go to Asia for a conference.
Wow.
So they're all over the place. I'm sort of learning my company. They're giving me the time to learn about what we do and who we are and how we do it. Cool. Which is really, really good.
Very much so, yeah.
Yeah. But we've got guys that, we're everywhere. We're always around.
And you make it in the UK?
And it's made in the UK.
Anything else you want to add before we wrap it up? Episode 1, season 2.
I'll issue an open offer / challenge to anybody listening who wants to learn and understand more. Not a sales pitch from me or Corewire, but anybody who wants to learn about hard facing, what it does, where it does it, why it does it. Get in touch.
I think that, and people can find you. I'd hate LinkedIn with a vengeance. I absolutely hate it. It's like, if somebody was going to like torture me, just put me in a cell with LinkedIn wallpaper. Like that'd be torture, I think. So, but people can obviously contact you on LinkedIn, and most people will kind of nick each other's customers from LinkedIn, don't they? I know that goes on. But they can find you where? Where can they find you?
Yeah, my details are on LinkedIn. I'm sure you could maybe put my email address in the bottom of this.
Yeah, I'll do that. If you leave that with me, that'd be really cool.
You know, but search Corewire, search my name.
Or if people wanted to get in touch with me, if it's my area, and then I can put them in direct with you. And then I think we need to get this round table discussion sorted, don't we, for the future?
I think the secret behind that is that everyone knows each other, really, and we all actually get on. It's just one of them things, you know, it's...
Yeah, you'd be amazed at how many people actually get on in the industry until you turn around and then they slag you off behind your back.
Because it's incestuous. We've all worked really close to each other at some point somewhere.
Everybody knows somebody else's shoe size, don't they?
Exactly.
It's been a pleasure having you on. Have you enjoyed it?
Yeah, it's been great.
I think the knowledge that's come out today, and I do want people to take you up. Come and get in touch with Aaron Cooper. It's such a rock star name, isn't it? I've been practicing that last night in the shower. You got to imagine it. We just moved. One of my dad's final wishes was get an houseboat for you and Oliver, and we bought one, and it's. We're not going to change the topic too much, but it's a fucking disaster. And it's like I'm finding wires without any sleeving on the earth. I'm finding cables that have burnt the insulation back on the neutral, and I'm just like floorboards that have been smashed to pieces. I'm just like, right, okay, we've got issues, and we've only lived there about a month. So last night, the sacred place of the house is the shower. It's the only place at the moment safe. And I'm in the shower going, Aaron Cooper. You just sound like a rock star. You sound like Aaron Cooper.
I don't know whether to be worried or honoured that you're thinking of me in the shower, to be honest.
I think I'd be honoured at that. Right, thanks for coming on. We'll get your details in the link. It'll be on Spotify and Apple, and we're going to try and get everything done on Amazon as well, so that's cool. You can start asking your virtual assistant for the Aaron Cooper episode of the Weld Like BAZZA podcast. Thanks for coming on, mate.
Thanks,
and we'll see you again.
Me.
Awesome. Right. Thank you.
See ya.
The Weld Like BAZZA podcast is sponsored by MS Welding, the #1 welding solution provider. mswelding.co.uk.